too, Ken.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure how much we were supposed
How
to.
many exposures is that? Or was it like an Olympus camera where you take the original and then it gives you an exposure, just adding new light?
No, this is probably about 3 to 4 exposures of 3 minutes each, f8, ISO 200, and then I stacked it in Photoshop.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's probably 9 to 12 minutes in total. It's hard to tell because I don't know the focal length. So.
Wow.
Yeah, nice job.
Thanks.
Why is it that the star trails on the right are long and on the left they're not?
The reason is because as you go farther and farther from the North Star, they travel more and more, just like, we're basically on a ball spinning, right? So the outer ones would be longer. And so if you look in the upper left corner, that's approximately where Polaris, where the North Star is.
Wow.
Great explanation. I think you get an A+ for that.
Oh,
yeah, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Good, great.
If you were to, just as a trivial aside, if you were to be in, say, Ecuador or Kenya or some other place by the equator, and you were to do star trails, the ones right in the middle, right by where east meets west, would be perfectly straight up and down.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Huh.
This is
Well,
something I'd like to try that someday.
So it would look like rain or snow coming down.
Precisely, yeah. It would be falling straight down. So the ones in the middle, that is like, on the periphery of the east and west.
What version
Or
of
technically north and south, but we could get complicated here. I'm sorry, you're going to ask a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just was curious what version of Photoshop you have.
I don't know. It's a fairly recent one because I'm purchasing a subscription, but I don't. It's not updated all the way, so I can't remember. But it's Adobe 2021.
Gotcha.
Or sorry, Photoshop CC 2021.
So in other words, you have the subscription service. I understand.
I do. Yeah, I have the subscription service, but quite frankly, you could do this without. I could have done this in Photoshop CS6 or any other pre-subscription thing. Geez, I can't even talk anymore.
Oh, you're just getting started, Ken. Okay.
Yeah.
Give your tongue a rest. Let me
That's
introduce you. Let me introduce you.
Yeah. But
Generally,
Photoshop has had the stacking thing for a while, so that's something that you could have done in CS2, for example.
Really? Now the select function is supposed to be fantastic now in the subscription service.
Right.
When you want to move people into different landscapes and things.
Ken, I have, Mr. Ken?
Excuse me.
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay, I have a question on this photo. So this is like a stack of a few photos put together into one. Is that what it is?
Precisely, yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So what you do is you stack it in Photoshop. And again, it's only 3 or 4 photos. You stack this in Photoshop, and then you change on all the layers on the bottom right. You change them from normal to lighten. And what that does is lighten allows all the new additive light to shine through. So in this case, it's the stars.
Okay.
That's really neat.
It's really, really nice.
Yeah, and that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
And if you don't have Photoshop, you can do this in StarStax, which is a free program, and it runs on any operating system that you would likely use. So
Star, what you say, Star?
StarStax, and Stax is spelled with an X at the end.
Okay.
StarStax.
Okay.
StarStax.
Okay.
It's a free program, and it's super, super easy to use.
Okay. Thank you.
And if you end up using it and you have any questions about it, you can just contact me. Probably just tag me in the group. That's probably best, and then I'll be happy to help you.
Alrighty, thank you.
Be careful, be careful. It's YouTube, so be careful what information you provide now.
Right.
My turn.
Okay.
Ken Lee is a photographer who drives long hours in a dusty car listening to weird music, staying out all night creating photos. He gets dirty, hangs out with other creative sleep-deprived weirdos, sees the stars drift across the sky, and always finds the best taco stands. He has been exploring the Southwestern United States and parts of the East Coast for over 6 years with a camera, tripod, and colored flashlight. He creates night photos of abandoned historical places, unique features and landscapes. Ken has authored several books on night photography of abandoned places. His images have appeared in National Geographic Books, Omni Magazine, the Los Angeles Times, the Westways Magazine, and other publications. Many of his photos have won awards. Let's welcome Ken.
Hi, thanks. So that's a perfect segue into the discussion about star trails and things like that, and lightning mode to the next topic. So I illuminated that car with something called light painting, and so even though you might not do light painting, it's still really good to know about the directionality and quality of light. And unfortunately, Jay, I can't share my screen because it's disabled. So those disabled participants.
Find a way to fix that.
Yeah, that would be great. Otherwise, this is going to be a really short presentation.
Well, we went without a rehearsal, didn't we?
We did.
If somebody was traveling, and I think you should be able to now.
Okay, let's give it a try again. And indeed, that is it. So, all right, so you should be able to see my screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love it when a plan comes together. All right, so there's light painting. I'm going to loosely describe it as three different things, light painting being the umbrella term. So the first kind of light painting is where we illuminate an object where the camera is stationary. So that bus would be an example. The camera's on a tripod. It's stationary, and I walk around and illuminate something, in this case with a handheld light. The second thing is called kinetic light painting. And this is where you actually do move the camera to create motion. And that can be done quite a few ways, but the example that I have there is something called camera rotation, where someone will literally spin their camera on a specially made mount, and then do light painting over and over again to achieve that effect. Moving each time or moving the camera, what have you. And the last one is called light drawing. And I'm going to describe that photo in just a second, but that's where you shine a light directly into the lens. Now, the kinetic light painting has elements of that because they are sort of shining the light directly into the lens too. So there can be a blurring of these sorts of things. So this is an example of light drawing, and it's, as you can tell, it's not new. Can anybody take a guess as to when they think the first light drawing or light painting was done?
1800s.
Yeah, absolutely. This is 1889.
Wow.
And this is Etienne Jules Maury and Georges Demeny. And so what happened here is that Demeny attached incandescent bulbs to the joints of his assistant and created the first known light painting photograph. This is called Pathological Walk from in Front. And this was not done for artistic purposes. In fact, the first light painting attempts that were done were typically for scientific research, as is the case here. They were kinesiologists studying physiology, and they were studying movement. So that's why that was done here. But 1889, which is pretty early on. So going to get into talking about light for a second, and I apologize. I got these two things out of order, but it's all right. So this is Rembrandt, of course, and those of you who do portraits, especially in studios, are familiar with the Rembrandt technique, right? So where the light comes from the side and forms a triangle.
Chiaroscuro.
The eye. Right. Yeah. So this is a popular lighting technique with today's photographers, and it's just an example of where you can learn from the masters in this case, and how they went about lighting things. This could be window lighting, or it could be a lamp, but regardless, it's coming from the side. And so this particular painting heavily influenced the way I go about doing light painting because of its ability to capture detail. I mean, if you look, you could see even the furrow of his brow and all sorts of other textures and details that the lights have picked up. So bear that in mind. I'm going to go back to light drawing for a second. And there's just a fun story with this. This is how I proposed. This is an example of light drawing. And
Oh my gosh. That's
what happened was about 3 years ago or so, I said, can you help me with this, with taking this photo? I'm going to write a message, and I'd like you to, kind of pop a flash against the other wall and illuminate the whole room and me. And so I went ahead and wrote this. And bear in mind that when you light write something, you have to do it backwards. So
oh geez.
you have to turn the flashlight on and off and do it backwards.
You're left-handed.
So because I was slightly nervous about this, I had practiced beforehand, and oddly enough, I was practicing in the shower. I was going on, off, I, S, A, backwards. And so I proposed as like I thought a night photographer should through light writing. So then she had no idea what I was doing. So I said, hey, let's look at the back of the camera and see how this came out. And so she looked and she went, oh! And that was that. So we're married now. So it worked.
She said yes. She said,
Yeah.
that's so great.
That's really neat.
That's wonderful.
Okay. So now going back to the Rembrandt thing for a second, you remember how I was discussing that the light was coming from the side. So I have several examples of a pumpkin, a decorative pumpkin. And I was originally going to show you this and give a demonstration in person, but it just looked so unbelievably lousy on the camera that I decided just to take photos for you guys instead. So this is with the lens to the camera left, of course. All of them are camera left, and it's about between 110 and 120 degrees from center, 0 being where the camera is, right? So it's farther than 90 degrees coming over at the far left. And you can see how it's picking up certain things. And the reason I did this particular one at about 110, 120 degrees is if you think about how a lot of modern sports portraiture is done, they do this with a lens, lights coming from about 110, 120 degrees, sometimes on both sides, sometimes on one side, but it looks really, really dramatic. And so you can do that with light painting, or you can do that with portraiture, or you can even, do it with natural sunlight, depending on how you set up your subject. So that's an example of 110, 120 degrees. This is 90 degrees. So you can see the difference already, but you can still see how it's picking up a lot of texture. And this is 45 degrees. You really see how that shapes between here and here. So 45 degrees, still picking up a lot of texture, but the light is becoming a little bit flatter. And this, of course, is 0, which is, most photographers don't consider this particularly flattering, especially for portraits. And certainly light painters never, ever do this, or at least good light painters don't, because you'd be standing directly in back of your camera. And this is part of the reason why pop-up flashes look so incredibly lousy. It's because it's straight on, and it's a very flat light, and usually about 99% of the time not desirable. So now, does that make sense? Any questions so far?
Oh, it's good.
Okay, cool. So now what I'm going to do is show you some photos taken in nature. And given what I just mentioned about Rembrandt and about the directionality of light, you can kind of tell where the light was. Now, most of my photographs will be a combination of moonlight and handheld light. So with this one, I was largely mimicking the moonlight. So you can tell that I was standing camera right. And you see how this tree is, there's a lot of texture on the tree, almost to the point of where you feel like you can reach out and grab it. And so the reason for that is because of the directionality of the light. It's picking up a lot of the detail because it's at approximately 90 degrees. So I'm up on the hill to the right. So, gosh. Okay, this one's taking a long time to get sharp. I don't know what the deal is, but anyway, there we go. So this one, remember what I mentioned about how you do sports photography? How some people do sports photography where there's two lights coming in at about 110, 120 degree angles, and how that looks really dramatic. Well, you can apply that to a lot of other things too, and I've applied it to this really large boulder here. So I'm coming at it from both sides at about 110, 120 degrees. So think about the pumpkin, the first photo of the pumpkin, how I did that on one side. I'm simply doing it on both sides here. And as a bonus, both Joshua trees also picked up that same quality of light. And so you can see the real, a lot of texture on both the rocks and the trees because of that approach to lighting. Same thing here. Now we're getting away from the nature photos, but same thing here. Same kind of lighting, 110, 120 degrees on either side of this a vintage stove, which is inside an abandoned barn. So yeah, same thing here.
Is this taking at nighttime?
Yeah, all of these so far are at night. Like every single one of these star trails here, nighttime. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So yeah, all of these are at night. And in fact, you can see the star. You can see a little star trail at, through the doorway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very pretty. Beautiful.
Yeah. So again, 120, about 110, 120 degrees on either side. This is that same barn. Now this is getting a little bit more complex because you can see that there's a lot of different angles going on here. And since a lot of you probably already knew about angles, but I just like to drive the point home. You can tell that I'm doing a lot of the angles. So for instance, on the back wall, the very back wall to the left, I've barely skimmed the wood at about as close to 90-degree angle as I can, and that picks up some of the texture, so it doesn't go completely black. And then some of the other things like the TV and things, you can tell I'm coming at it from a really shallow angle that's about as close to 90 degrees as possible. Now, of course, the moonlight is coming in at through the window, so I just let that go. So all of the shadows on top of the dresser are mostly from the incoming moonlight. And that's actually what inspired me to take this photo, is I loved the pattern of that. So yeah.
Is this a
Fisheye?
Oh yeah, it looks cool. Very beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is definitely a fisheye. It's a Rokinon 12 millimeter fisheye.
Oh, very, very nice.
Yeah. Remember I was talking about red and how it blows out easily?
Mm.
So what I've done here is I've desaturated the red a little bit. And, you know, in Photoshop or Lightroom or whatever program you use, you can always bring up the saturation a little bit more and, you know, try and test it and make sure that the details don't blow out. But I've just blasted the entire inside of this abandoned hangar with red, and it's not really blown out.
So, so the light is coming from the outside, the moonlight.
That's once again, that's moonlight, but
Moonlight.
my red light is coming from the inside.
Uh-huh.
I'm applying light from about 3 different angles. So first I stood over by camera right, over to way off camera to the right, and skimmed the back wall, again, as close to 90 degrees as I possibly could. Then I walked around to camera left, and I skimmed the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Then I walked over to the far side where the wall is to the left, and then did the same thing there as close to 90 degrees as possible, skimming that wall to pick up the detail. So that's why there's so much detail. If I had stood behind the camera or thereabouts, or even at a 45-degree angle, I would have blown out some of the detail. But because of the angle I'm using, I'm able to preserve that detail. And again, even if you don't light paint, it's good to be aware of these things. So if you're either in a studio situation or you want to wait until the sunlight strikes something a certain way, it can really, really make all the difference in picking up detail. So, yeah.
And
Yes.
did you use an LED or did you use a gel?
I used an LED for this, but you certainly could use you could use an LED flashlight with a gel. And when I stop the slideshow presentation, I'll show you what I've used.
Excellent. Thank you.
Ken?
Yes.
So are you saying that the walls are not red? It's just a light?
Correct. They're actually off white.
How do you control the light so that the floor is not red as well? Does not bleed.
I use my hand so there's not too much spillage. Like I block part of my light with my hand or with a piece of cardboard, which in the industry is called a light modifier. and so that way I don't get much on the floor. If you look real closely, you can actually see a little bit on the floor.
Right, to the left.
Yeah.
Primarily in the shadow.
Yeah.
Now, also, the windows have glass, doesn't it?
No, only the 5 windows to.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
So,
Thank you.
Sure. This is an example of backlighting. So I'm creating shadow by simply backlighting in back of the 3 columns here. So you can see how you can play with shadow here. So this is a little bit different from the angles that I was showing you with the pumpkin, because I didn't really show you this, but I wanted to show you the power of backlighting as well. Now this also has some side lighting. I'm skimming the interior in the same manner that I described with the previous photo. I'm skimming it too to pick up a little bit of detail, but most of the light is coming from backlighting. So you see how powerful lighting can be, especially if you can control it. And that's one of the beauties of light painting, is that you can control the light, because after all, it's dark outside. So much of the light is dependent on you. So here's some more examples of backlighting. Oh, I'm sorry, well, it's one out of order. Okay, this is not backlighting. This is I guess we're onto interior lighting now. Okay, so interior lighting, what I did is, this is actually done before I got my present light. So this is a Streamlight LED flashlight with gels over it. And I also, to light the interior of this bus, I also used a speed light that was off camera, and it had a blue gel on it, and I simply popped it a bunch of times inside the bus. And speed lights give this really nice, even sort of light because it, you know, it blasts all over the place. So, yeah. So, okay, so we're out of the backlighting area. Again, that same sort of thing with skimming a surface. So in this case, we have a lot of corrugated metal. So what did I do? I skimmed all of these surfaces that I could with a light as close to 90 degrees as I could get while still illuminating the sides. So you could see the back corrugated thing I skimmed with a warm white light. And in the interior of the walkway, the overhead walkway, I skimmed the overhead corrugated metal on the ceiling as well. So you can see where that really picked up a lot of detail.
Mm-hmm. How long is this exposure, Ken?
This one looks to be about 9 minutes, judging from the star trails. This is a fisheye, a 12 millimeter again. Mm-hmm. So this is no more than 12 minutes from the looks of it. However, I probably did the light painting in the first frame, which was 3 minutes.
Mm. So is this the fish eyes, the fixed fish eyes, 12 minutes?
It is. Oh. Yeah, it's completely fixed. It's, although I don't know very much about it, but Nikon makes a fisheye zoom. There's not very many of those around, but Nikon has an 8 to 15 millimeter, I think it is. 8 to 15 millimeter fisheye zoom, which is unusual because most fisheyes are fixed. So yeah. All right, more interior lighting. This one is the tail, the tail of an airplane. So I stood inside and once again, as close to 90 degrees as possible, skimmed the interior. Now you can see the severed part of the back, like way back there. I also did the same thing. And thankfully, I'm rather tall because that thing is really high up off the ground. But in order to do that, I used a snoot, a light modifier on my light, and I literally jumped up and down while turning on and off my flashlight so I could get the correct angle. So if you had seen me there, you would have seen someone with a flashlight jumping up and down about 10 or 12 times.
Wow.
Was this a regular light or LED light?
LED light, and I'll show you that in a second. This is my last photo, and this is a friend helping me out, and this is another case of funny backlighting. But in this case, because the glass was a little smudgy and dirty, basically it blew out the glass, which is what we were trying to do. We were trying to make this look like I was being abducted. So, yeah, we're having a lot of fun here. So, yeah. So I'm going to stop sharing, I think. Oops, no, wrong button. I'm going to stop sharing. However,
photos, my goodness.
Oh, thank you. So I don't know if you can still see me. Hopefully you can.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So let me get rid of this thing here. So this is the light that I've used for all but the crooked bus photo. This is called a Proto Machines LED 2. And what it does is it gets all the lights of the RGB spectrum. I have full control. It'll look a little blown out, but it has full control over brightness and saturation as well as hue. And it also has a timer. So this is what I use for everything now. But back in the day, when I first started, I had a Streamlight LED light, which is it's a small LED light. It's probably about $40. And I purchased Roscoe Lux gels. You can purchase the little tiny booklets, which at the time sold for about $7 or $8 from B&H. And they were basically just for samples. It was a sample book. And you could purchase this. And then what I did is I put them in little cardboard cutout things that looked just like film slides. And then I attached them to the flashlight. And this is my light modifier. It's a snoot. And this is what I was jumping up and down with on the plane. Now, this screws on to the proto machines like this, so I can leave one of my hands free. I don't have to hold it in front. Now, so the only thing I have to be really careful about is that this looks a little bit like a firearm. So if anybody comes,
Yeah.
I immediately put this down because I don't want them to think I have a firearm, or I purposely shine lights out of it so they know it's a flashlight. So that is the one thing I have to be careful about, because this suddenly looks like a firearm.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
and yeah, so anyway, that's my presentation. If there's questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'll get on with the next thing.
Thank
Well,
you.
look at you.
Outrageous work, just outrageous. So
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
Fantastic, Ken, really.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Where do
most welcome. And, especially on the Facebook group, you're welcome to ask any question about the stuff that I post, like how did you do that? What did you use? All of that. Just feel free to ask. I'm here to help. That's the whole idea of the group, is to help each other, right? So
Thank you, Ken.
Where do you find these gems?
the locations?
Yeah.
Oh man, hours
Secret,
hours
Ken,
of
top secret.
work. I'm a Google Earth and Google Maps fiend. I read lots of blogs. Another thing I do is that Facebook, one of the best things about Facebook are their groups. So if there's a particular thing that you're interested in, whatever that might be, join a Facebook group, because you'll see all sorts of photos, and then, try and look them up and see if you can find them. Because a lot of times people, want to keep them secrets, largely because people come and tag them, or one of the problems that we've been having in the Mojave Desert lately is that there's a lot of people who will burn things. So there's a lot of arsonists. So a lot of the things that I've photographed have been burned in the last 5-6 months. So a lot of us have stopped giving names and locations. So I basically just, with a lot of those things, I just vaguely say Mojave Desert.
Yeah.
Smart.
It's a shame, but it's coming to that with a lot of the pristine places that you want to go shoot.
Yeah.
That's a real problem.
Yeah. And it's not just abandoned things that are subject to arson as well. It's also really, really delicate sorts of things. Like there's some places that I go to in Joshua Tree National Park where there's a really, really fragile crust that's filled with various kinds of bacteria, and it's extremely fragile. And there's no trails there. So you have to be really careful about telling too many people where these things are. But there's a whole bunch of arch formations in this one part of the park that almost no one knows about. There's probably only about 30 people who know where these things are. And we're really careful to not tell too many people where they are, because otherwise the whole place would become trampled. So when I post photos of those arches, I also just say Mojave Desert, so they don't know where it is.
Yeah.
So it's sad that I have to do that, but it's just, the preservationist in me just wants to make sure that places stay safe, and they're not ruined or trampled or tagged or defiled. So
Thank you,
Doing the
Ken.
right thing.
Thank
you're
you.
most welcome.
Thank you a million, Ken, really.
Thank you.
I give you a standing ovation. but I'm
Wonderful
not
talk.
right.